This is the moment we've all been waiting for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world. Let's get ready to rumble!
Welcome to the Junkyard Pod. I'm Tony Pesta, joined by Corey Walsh, and joining both of us today to recap what was one of the best Cavs games of the year, one of the most inspiring victories, an absolutely insane comeback against the Boston Celtics. We have a very special guest who I've been meaning to record with for a while, and so I'm so excited that he's here. Nicky G of Clutch Points. Welcome in, man. How are you feeling right now? The game just ended.
I'm Cloud 10. I'm feeling resilient. I'm feeling vindictive. It's good. It's a good feeling right now. How you guys doing?
I'm doing amazing, man. I'm ready to let him know. Listen, if anyone isn't following Nicky, he's got to be. If anyone beats me in terms of being the optimist for Cavs basketball, it's either him or Mac Perry. So I'm ready to let some takes fly, and I know Corey is too. Corey, we just did the Playback live stream. We witnessed that comeback live. How are you feeling coming off the heels of that game?
I feel like I was going doomsday after that first quarter. I was getting war flashbacks from past first quarters of Cavs Celtics this season. But we've also seen the Cavs come back from those awful first quarters as of late, and they did it again. 25-3 would kill most teams, but the Cavs have proven that they're not that type of team. In fact, they proved in the second half that they are capable of shutting off the Celtics' water for almost an entire half. I would argue the second half was basically all the Cavaliers. The Celtics were struggling, so you can't really be that upset.
Yeah, I tweeted before the game, and we talked a lot about this in the build-up to the game, that basically if you look at the last three matchups between Cleveland and Boston in this regular season, Boston has whooped our ass in the first half, and we've whooped their ass in the second half. And so all we talked about in the build-up to this game is let's try to change that. Let's try to actually come out, not fall down by 20 right away. And unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. We still went down by 20 in the first, I think, 4 minutes. And so, listen, it's never good to go down by 20, but I joked on the Playback stream. I was like, well, if you're going to get buried by 20, it's better to have it happen in the first 4 minutes, I guess. But the thing is, even in the third quarter, Boston got it all the way back up to 20 again. And I started to feel like, all right, this might really be over. But the Cavs, like Nicky said, he's feeling resilient. The Cavs were feeling resilient too, because they did not give up at any point. Obviously, they started the game slow, and that's never ideal. But coming back from down 22, I think was the largest lead, and picking up this win to end the season series 2-2, it was awesome. And I have to say, I'm sure we're gonna talk about a lot of different players, but Donovan Mitchell was special tonight. Nicky, what did you see from Mitchell?
A true leader, a true 1A, a guy who, if you fall down to 20 against the defending champions, a guy who can galvanize a locker room to stay together and not lose your heads. I think in a vacuum, we come out of the first quarter only down by 12. In a vacuum, it's not too bad, but it's not a vacuum. There's history here. There's, a pattern here people have noticed with these starts and this team and falling behind against them, right? And so it feels like whatever their version of a Cavalanche is. And that's hard to overcome. But Donovan's demeanor, him getting these guys to buy in, to stick with it, that's the only way you can start to turn little things and cut that down to a 12, to a 3-point, and make this a game and give yourself a chance going into that fourth quarter. So from a mindset standpoint, a leadership standpoint, that's been his biggest area of growth this year. And that's a testament to Kenny Atkinson.
Yeah, that's something that's special about the Celtics, which also is their Achilles heel, is that they live and die by their perimeter shot. And in the first quarter, we saw pretty much both sides of that coin. We saw them get out to a nuclear explosion of a 3-point barrage that left the Cavs wallowing in their wake. And then in the second half of the first quarter, the Cavs were able to reel back in. And the Celtics, I wrote about this in the preview, but I feel like they live on their identity of last season, but they've really dialed it up more, where they've always been a perimeter-oriented offense. Joe Mazzulla really lives and dies by the three, which is really good for them when they get on these hot streaks. But the three-point shot is so variable it can go on and off at the drop of a hat. And the Celtics, even as we saw with Jason Tatum played a fantastic game for 3 quarters, I would say. And then in the fourth quarter, that shot wasn't falling and the Celtics offense crumbles. The Cavs offense is more traditional in the sense where they can attack you from a multitude of ways. But if you built your whole offense around one shot and it's not working, it's almost like the Celtics were kind of scrambling for answers. And the Cavs kind of got bailed out that they didn't make their adjustments until the second half, I felt like.
I think the one thing that I was really impressed about Jason Tatum was, you're right, his game is built around that 3-ball. It really is. And, they did win a title playing this style, so it's hard to totally, dismiss it, especially because you're right. At times it does feel like it could be their Achilles heel at times. But Tatum feels very different this year. It feels like last year he struggled to make those adjustments. He struggled to, adapt away from the 3 and make those pivots. But today, especially in that first half, it felt like the Cavs really tried everything. It really felt like we tried every single defender. We tried every kind of scheme. It feels like you could no longer play drop against him because of his playmaking ability now. So it's just, he's such a complete player now that you're right. You kind of have to hope he goes on a cold streak because this was his best game of the season high. Took everything to try to beat this team in the kind of rampage he was on. So I think he did, even though we got this win, the way Tatum played and the way you envision facing these guys in a 7-game series, it makes you think, what are you going to do about this in the long run? How do what are the schemes now? What are the rotational changes now? I thought, Tony, I'm curious in comment what you guys are thinking about. How did double big look against these guys? How did Max Strus look against these guys? When do you put Hunter in, and what are those rotations around Hunter? I'm curious what you guys think would be the next pivots here.
Yeah, we're definitely going to talk all about that because that's one of the biggest, things of this game that we have to focus on. But real quick, I do want to hit on that Tatum thing too, because I think he really has changed his game this year. He's been on an absolute tear recently. And through the first 3 quarters, he was by far the best player on the floor. Especially that first quarter, he came out absolutely swinging. He was, even if you tried, the Cavs tried everything, right? They switched it. They tried to trap him. No matter what, he was making the right play, whether it's the assist, bearing a mid-range jumper, hitting the 3 over the drop. He was just answering everything. And when he's playing that good, you're right. Like the Cavs didn't really have many options. And so what they ended up doing down the stretch that I was calling for and I was happy to see, because that's how they won their previous game against Boston that they won, is they just kind of said, all right, you know what, Jason Tatum, you're amazing. You're cooking us. We're going to put a defender on you, trust the one-on-one defense, and not collapse the rest of our defense unless we have to, because if you can beat us, then you can beat us. But we can't keep collapsing and allowing these drive and kick threes that Boston thrives off. So that was a huge adjustment. And the other thing, tying this back to Donovan Mitchell real quick before we move on from him, I said, if Jason Tatum's the best player on the floor, the Cavs aren't beating Boston. It's just that simple. If he's the best player on the floor, they're probably not getting over the hump. You need Donovan Mitchell or Evan Mobley, as we'll talk about, to be at, they need to be in the running. And that's what happened in the fourth quarter, especially, even the third quarter. Donovan Mitchell completely took over this game. Really, after the first quarter, if you look at it, Boston won the first quarter by 12. They proceeded to lose the second quarter and the third quarter and the fourth quarter by a combined 19 points. So the Cavs really rallied back after that. Donovan Mitchell was a huge reason for it. He had 41 points, 5 assists, shot 13 of 26 from the field. And one of the biggest things that I think he did in this game is that it was somewhere in the fourth quarter with about 4 minutes left. He had already scored, I don't know how many points he had in the fourth quarter alone, but he was already in a rhythm. He had already brought the Cavs back to take the lead. And he has the ball with Sam Hauser on him, a mismatch that he could easily attack. But Jaylen Brown is kind of cheating off of DG a little bit and trying to plug up that driving gap. And Mitchell, rather than forcing it, gets the ball out of his hands very quickly. It goes to Darius Garland, and he buries a deep 3-pointer to extend the lead. And that's just a little play that, the selflessness and the willingness to pass the ball and trust his teammates, that's a huge development for Mitchell. Even when he had it going, we've seen in the past, he could have easily taken a pull-up 3 there, but he decided to trust DG, and I thought that was huge. And really, we won this game for many reasons, but Donovan Mitchell ascending to being the best player on the floor, especially in the fourth quarter, was the biggest reason, in my opinion.
The last thing I'll say about your Jason Tatum point is that you're right that the Cavs basically have to focus in on Tatum to beat the Celtics consistently. And that's what my biggest issue was with this for beginning to the first quarter. Tony and I have said repeatedly on this podcast, and it's gotten a lot of pushback. I feel like that Strus shouldn't be the starting 3 if the Cavs are trying to match up with the Celtics. Like, yes, the Cavs don't need Hunter starting to beat the Knicks, to beat the any other top teams in the East. But the Celtics are built differently than all the other teams that are in the Eastern Conference. They're tall, they're athletic, and they can all shoot. There's no other team in the league I can think of that can really hit all the same boxes that the Celtics do. The Thunder are taller, but they're not as offensively strong. They give you the same challenge defensively that the Celtics do, but I was really disappointed, and I think that the first few minutes of the first quarter really just hammered home to me that the Cavs need to pivot to this Hunter option, because when they kind of switched, I think it also gives more viability to the 2 bigs if that's what Kenny decides he still wants to roll with. But if you're going to roll with Strus, it really makes it harder to play Allen and Mobley together, because you're putting a lot of options out there that the Celtics can attack in isolation, Allen included. I mean, Tatum got a lot of his good points off of him. So if you can put Hunter out there to try to neutralize Tatum a little more, it probably will help, because Tatum leads the Celtics in assists, rebounds, and turnovers, or points per game. So he is literally the engine of this offense. He is the point guard. He's the finisher. He's the alpha. There's so many things that Tatum does. So the more that the Cavs can throw different bodies at him to slow him down, that's how they're going to win these games. And that's what we saw in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and as Corey said, me and him have both pushed for DeAndre Hunter into the starting lineup, and we both say, like, we love Max Strus. I really love Max Strus. I think he's a very helpful player. I don't want his minutes to decrease. I just kind of want to change where they're coming from. But I'm pretty sure, Nikki, you have a different opinion on this, or at least I think you did the last time we talked on Twitter. So it's good to get a counter opinion here, because, again, me and Corey have yapped forever about this. I want to hear your perspective and kind of the case for Max Strus starting, because I do think he brings a lot of different things to the team. And so I want to hear your opinion on this, or if it's changed after the Boston game.
I think it's like a total like valid question. I think Kenny has to walk away from this game and really consider it. And DeAndre Hunter has made such a crazy good case in 7 games. So it really makes sense, especially the way he's shooting. I think that's a big factor as well. Like, offensively, I thought the biggest reason why you would want to keep Strus in the lineup is, his ability to run pick and roll, DHO, his off-ball movement. With the double big, it made sense with Strus. But the double big was also problematic today. I think that's another part of this. It's like it's a little bit connected. Like, I'm not sure it's like totally in a vacuum. You just take out Strus for Hunter and you've sort of solved all the synergy issues here. I think Allen is a little bit part of that question too. And it's like, can Hunter and those 3 play together with the bigs? Possibly. So I could see this. It's so interesting because, like, we played this team 4 times, and over the course of 4 games, the Cavs have outscored them by 1 point. In 4 games, the total difference in scoring is 1 point to the Cavs' favor. So it's just like these margins are super small, and it's these blowout beginnings that are standing out to us, and those are the ones we're reacting to and really, trying to conceive what we need to improve from. But, like, I feel like there were just so many ebbs and flows to this game that Kenny has to look at and figure out, which wing-based lineup to use Hunter with. Because the one argument with keeping Hunter off the bench is that you're going to at least use him with a lot of Wade and a lot of Strus, so that, and I think you could still do that even with him in the starting lineup. So I think that also adds to the argument that you should start him. I guess there's a chance Kenny might just need to try it and see how it does over time. I can see why you would want to, and I can also see Strus coming off the bench and those rotations working out well too. It's a lot to think about. I think if you do consider the swap with Strus, I think you're wondering exactly where does Allen slide in and out of this, because I thought you could argue that Allen struggled just as much, if not more, than Strus today in a lot of ways.
Yeah. We got to talk about the 2 big lineup here in a second, because that's a big question mark. And yeah, the thing with Strus is, like, again, I don't want his minutes reduced. I think he offers a lot to this team. Against Boston, though, it's just he's put in a tough position trying to guard either one of the Jays, and that's where Hunter helps a lot. But yeah, I mean, like, there's options the Cavs have now, and so I do trust Kenny Atkinson. He's probably going to be looking at this for a while and trying to figure out. And honestly, I'm really interested to go back and rewatch this game and just get a sense for, like, okay, what lineups worked, what lineups weren't working. They went on their big run in the 3rd and 4th quarter. It felt like with one of the bigs on the floor, Jarrett Allen played pretty bad today overall. The only real good stint that he turned in was in the 3rd quarter when he was playing at center. And I believe, this is off the top of my head, I believe he had 0 rebounds up until that point in the game. And then he grabbed 4 in that quarter 3 offensive, and he had a handful of layups as well. So same thing with Mobley. He struggled all game. Fourth quarter rolls around. He's the only big out there. And this is Jackson Flickinger told us this on the playback stream. So if the stat is wrong, everyone blame Jackson. But I believe Mobley had 11 points and 8 rebounds in the fourth quarter alone, which he finished the game with 17 points and 12 rebounds. So huge fourth quarter for Evan Mobley. He was absolutely huge when they needed him most. And again, I think you look at the last 3 games against Boston, even just historically against Boston, we haven't gotten a good 2 big game. Like Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen, one of them, if not both of them, has struggled every time against Boston. And whenever one of them finds success, it's because the other one's on the bench. Now, I am the biggest 2 big defender on the planet. I love the 2 big lineup, but Boston is different. Like we've said, same thing with the Strus Hunter debate. Boston offers different problems. And so tonight, I know Allen and Mobley both had some poor performances at different stretches, but their best moments came when it was just one of them on the floor. And if the pivot you have to make is, well, Dean Wade and DeAndre Hunter are going to play some backup 4, I actually think that's a pretty good option for the Cavs, right? Like Hunter and Wade are both capable of doing that. So, Corey, I wanted to get your thoughts. Is the 2 big lineup playable against Boston, or are the Cavs going to have to really ramp up the amount that they're staggering these guys and rely more on Wade and Hunter as, the backup 4s?
I think the body of work through 4 games has kind of really voiced that the 2 big hasn't worked. We saw it even in the first game they played against the Celtics when they snapped the undefeated streak. The best stretch came when Niang was playing the 4 and Mobley was playing the 5 for them. I feel like the Celtics do run a more traditional lineup. I think they're truly one of the only teams in the league that really challenges the Cavs' bigs lineups because they have the athleticism to beat these defenses that the Cavs kind of can get by with against other teams in the league. Ideally, I might even pivot hard enough to say that I think the most ideal lineup, I don't know if it's like just too drastic of an idea, is just to have Garland, Mitchell, Wade, Hunter, and Mobley as your starting 5 to start off the game, because we've seen situations where Wade and Hunter have given the Celtics more trouble defensively, and the Cavs need to be a little more proactive in their approach to start games, because it's clear through 4 that the Celtics come out aggressive and that they have gotten really hot starts. So the more that the Cavs can kind of mitigate those types of beats, I mean, we've seen that the Cavs can adapt throughout the game. I think starts just have really set the tone. And while the Cavs have been able to respond well in all 4 games from those types of starts, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the blueprint that this team should be looking for going forward. So I think pivoting as much as you can, just for the Celtics, not saying that this is how the team should kind of go about it going forward, but playoff basketball is where you have to try things that are different. And it's not necessarily the blueprint that they're going to use for every matchup that they have in the postseason, but you have to just really know your personnel. And the Celtics are going to know to attack the Cavs in isolation if they keep trotting out the same group. We've seen it enough to where Joe Mazzulla gets a lot of flack for his coaching style sometimes, but he knows how to get the Cavs early.
Yeah, he knows how to get them early for whatever reason. Again, every single game this season, the Celtics have been up by 20, and somehow the season series is 2-2. As Nikki said, the total point differential is just a 1-point difference in the Cavs' favor. So it's been really weird matchups. And again, historically, the Cavs have just had some really weird games against the Celtics. There's the Grant Williams. I'm going to make both of them. There's the Dean Wade game with the Travis Kelce brothers. Like, it was just the Kelce brothers. It was nuts. They've had some wild games against the Cavs and Celtics. So I don't really know what to expect from a playoff series, but I think the one thing that we probably all still agree on is Evan Mobley is the key. He is the single most important factor, I would say. And so, Nikki, I wanted your thoughts on what have you seen from Mobley, not just tonight, not even just in this Cavs Celtics series, but really on the season. And is he still the key? Like, what do you think from this matchup for Mobley?
Tony, you made a point earlier about the rebounding thing, and I think part of it is by design. I think the way the Celtics play and the way they match up Hunt, there's a lot of cross-matching. Mobley and Allen end up defending on the perimeter a lot. That affects their rebounding. I thought the times when they were able to switch the rebounding in their favor is when they gave Boston a taste of their own medicine, and they started taking advantage of the cross-matching when they were on offense. And then when Mobley ever got switched on Derek White, he would then grab those boards. Same with Allen. Whenever he got switched on a smaller guy, he would grab those rebounds, right? So I think being more aggressive about that, if they're going to cross-match, if that's the style of play they're going to do, those guys have to be looking for those opportunities sooner. And I think, Boston's tactic is going to be taking Donovan out of it, trying to get these guys the ball out. And Mobley's got to take advantage of his matchups, not just against smaller guys, but like Mobley has to look at Al Horford and think barbecue chicken. He has to eventually at some point look at Kristaps Porzingis and think, I am more athletic. I have good touch. I can win this matchup. He needs to believe in that. So he is the key. I still think Donovan Mitchell is going to have to be our best player. But for us to win these margins and for us to overcome the talent that they have on that starting lineup, Mobley has to be a star. He has to be one of the stars on this floor. And, he didn't do it for 3 quarters. Today, that fourth quarter really made up for it. And in all aspects, right? His defense is obviously big. The rebounding obviously needs to be noticeable. And when you say he's the key, is you have to feel that, you have to see that. So yeah, Mobley's got to be he's got to be extremely visible if we want to win these things.
Yeah, I think that was well said. And again, the fourth quarter, perfect example of it. The Cavs finally stormed back, take the lead, and a big part of that, yes, Donovan Mitchell was going crazy, but Evan Mobley also finally arrived and was like, all right, I'm here. I'm going to take over. And you mentioned looking at Al Horford like barbecue chicken. Can anybody on the Cavs look at him like barbecue chicken? Man, I'm so tired of Al Horford plugging up DG and defending in space. Like, someone's got to make this dude look his age. Respect to Al Horford for still doing it, but like, God, someone's got to be able to abuse him. And we talked about the rebounding and we talked about it a lot on the playback, and I saw a lot of tweets and people in the chat just complaining about the rebounding, and I felt it too. But I'm looking at the numbers, I'm actually very surprised. The Cavs actually won the rebounding battle. They won 44-40, which really surprised me. And I think what that speaks to is, you mentioned it, Mobley and Allen, they're getting cross-matched. They're spending time on the perimeter. They're not really in the paint as often. And in the past, the Cavs, outside of Mobley and Allen, they had no rebounding, right? It was Dean Wade and George Niang doing their best out there, but no one else could really rebound. You look at this bench right now, Dean Wade, 3 rebounds. DeAndre Hunter, 5. Okoro, 3. Ty Jerome, 4. Sam Merrill grabbed 3. Allen had 4. Mobley had 12. Garland picked up a couple. Strus had 4. It's this gang rebounding, this team effort that we've been begging for, and they did it and somehow managed to out-rebound the Celtics, even though it felt like the Celtics grabbed every single back-breaking rebound. And the other point that I want to make when I'm shouting out the bench for the rebounding, the Cavalier bench outscored Boston's bench 33-6. And you might as well just call I was going to say, it's not even Boston's bench. It's just Peyton Pritchard out there. He had all 6 of those points. DeAndre
Insert
Hunter,
Jon Snow gif.
yeah, just one man versus the whole army. DeAndre Hunter led the Cavs bench with 12 points, but you got 8 from Ty Jerome, 5 from Okoro, 5 from Dean Wade, 3 from Sam Merrill. Like, it was an all-around team effort, and that's the way the Cavs have been winning all season. So I know there's certain things that we wanted to see show up in this game. We wanted a better game from Jarrett Allen. You maybe wanted a little bit better of a game from Garland, but honestly, I was pretty okay with the way he played. I know Strus didn't play that well, but man, the depth came through again, and that's been the theme all season. So the fact that they can continue to rely on their depth is such a huge thing. Corey, any other takes here about the bench or the rebounding?
No, aside from the fact that I feel like regular season basketball is where you see a lot of players who don't necessarily have playoff value get a lot of tread. And then we approach this point in the season, those types of lineups kind of wind down as coaches kind of refine their minutes. I feel like the Cavs are in such a good position in the sense that I think that they have so many buttons that they can press in the postseason that I wouldn't expect massive minute decreases from our bench. I think we've seen a lot of value in different scenarios from all these players. I feel like the only player I could possibly foresee getting less minutes in the postseason at this point might be Okoro, and that's if the shot continues to kind of struggle a little bit. But other than that, I feel like the Cavs once again have proven their value, and against a team like the Celtics, that every single one of their bench players was finding success pretty much in given minutes. So I think the Cavs are just set up for this was a good case study for their depth against a postseason threat.
Yeah,
I will. I'll maybe say one thing I noticed today. There was a moment in the fourth quarter going down the stretch where Kenny gave Mobley a breather, and he wasn't comfortable going back to Allen. And so for those last few minutes, he tried a small ball lineup with Wade, Strus, and Hunter. And obviously everybody at Cavs Twitter lost their mind. They're like, oh, there's no center. Oh my God, they're going to eat us up. And they had some success with it. Obviously, I trust Kenny Atkinson. We all know the gamble he's making here is like, yes, we're more switchable. We're more spaced out on offense. They're going to have to deal with us, all this and that. I think part of that may have been like obviously to give Mobley the breather. And so you look at the minutes tonight and you've looked at it for all season. The Cavs have been very, very, they've spread it out a lot. Today, Donovan Mitchell played 35 minutes a game. It's barely happened all season. Evan Mobley played less than 30 minutes today, and he still needed a breather, right? So I think there is something about the depth that Kenny needs to think about now where you need to get these guys used to playing higher minutes. And there needs to be a ramp up now, especially at one point when we face these guys in a 7-game series. So Mobley is going to have to play 40 minutes a game at one point, and he couldn't do it today. So at some point, you are going to have to take some of these minutes off guys in the bench. And you have to decide what that looks like, which is crazy because today the bench saved us. Today, Ty Jerome coming in with a plus 30 something. Hunter, obviously, we know the impact. We talked about it, right? So at some point, you got even Okoro was like, I agree with you, Corey. My mind would be he's the first guy I would take minutes away from, right? But today, there was moments where he absolutely felt essential. So I think Kenny has to figure this out where, like, these guys to start getting used to higher minutes now. Donovan can't look as tired as he did today after 35 minutes. Mobley can't take that breather in the fourth quarter against the Celtics next time. So you got to think about it. You got to think about like how you're going to exactly get those minutes up and where they're coming from. And it's going to be tough when your bench is this good. But we know the 3 guys on the bench. Maybe Strus move in for Hunter, but right now it's Hunter, Wade, and Jerome. So right now you got to start to maximize those minutes and ramp up to get ready for a higher minute series.
The beauty of postseason basketball is it's truly a game by game type of ordeal. And the Cavs have so many players on their bench that they kind of excel in certain situations. So while I'm not expecting the minutes to like exactly carry over, I think that they all have proven viability in some way that I would expect to at least see the entire bench in a duration of a series, but maybe in some games it's more of a Wade game than it is an Okoro game, or maybe it's not really Jerome's night, so they'll push another button. But I agree with you. The minute ramp up, it's not reflective. I mean, for all the talk of how Tom Thibodeau runs his players into the dirt before the postseason comes, it's the most conditioning I think any of the teams have in the league for what postseason basketball is like. It might not actually produce the best results, but I agree 100% that the Cavs have kind of been in the situation where they've been blowing teams out in the third quarter. So the Cavs are getting accustomed to playing sub 30 minutes a game, but we all know that postseason basketball, the margin for error is so much smaller and the physicality is ramped up. So the Cavs might not be as acclimated to that type of environment. And maybe it's something by the time they get to the Celtics, they'll be ready for, but I don't see that being an issue up until that point.
Yeah, both you guys made fantastic points. And I think it ties into some of the larger questions that we're asking is like, all right, the Cavs are, they're 49-10 now. Incredible. One of the best seasons in franchise history. It could very well end up being the most successful season in franchise history, at least from a regular season standpoint. But there are little questions on the margins here and there where Kenny Atkinson kind of has to look at the board and think, all right, we got to 49-10, so a lot is working right. How much do I stick to what's working in my guns, and how much do I try and tinker with the things on the fringe here and make us perfect? And I think Corey kind of hit the nail on the head of like, ideally, you get into the first round. Hopefully we get an ideal matchup there. We're going to be the 1 seed playing against the 8 seed. That's where you can start to figure out some things maybe against a lesser playoff opponent. Now, you don't really want to play with fire against any team in the playoffs, but maybe by the time you get to Boston, we've figured out, some of these questions on the margins. And of course, they have the rest of the regular season to finish it as well, to figure out some of these things, a whole month left. But I have 2 topics left for us real quick that I want to hit on, and then I'll let everyone go because I know it's late. One thing that I have to ask, because I see the Ricky Rubio bobblehead there, Nikki, and I think this is a good way to transition to this, because Ricky Rubio, absolute Cavalier legend, basketball legend. We love Ricky Rubio here. I have to ask the question, has Ty Jerome taken the torch? Is he carrying the baton for Ricky Rubio now as iconic backup Cavalier point guards, or is he not quite at that level?
Oh, he's beyond the level. I'm gonna
Okay,
I'm gonna name my future daughter Ty Jerome. Ty Jerome is a presidential candidate. Ty Jerome is nah. Like Peyton Pritchard has like a lot of hype and all this stuff, but Ty Jerome has eclipsed him. I was talking to a Celtics fan today, and he was like, "Oh, who even is Ty Jerome? We don't even hear about this guy." It's like, and that's the tragedy. That's actually a tragedy. He should be sixth man of the year. It's crazy. I don't know. I don't know many players off the bench who have genuine starting point guard potential like that. And it's just he was huge for us today. Even defensively, like he got cross-matched to Tatum line and he held his own. He stabilized us. He punished people in the pick and roll. Ty Jerome for president. That guy.
I agree. Me and Corey have spent so much time talking about Ty Jerome the last few pods. Like every pod, we have to go over it all over again. How absolutely absurd this dude has been. And you mentioned the sixth man of the year race. Looking at these box scores, I know plus minus is a wonky stat at times, but just let the record show for the agendas. Ty Jerome tonight, plus 34. Peyton Pritchard, minus 36. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, that's the Celtics bench you're talking about.
I'm just pointing out the facts. Ty Jerome plus 34, and he shot 3 of 10. So he didn't even shoot the ball that well, but he honestly did a little bit of everything. He had a big three-pointer. He actually had 2 3-pointers tonight. 4 rebounds, which is great from your backup point guard. 3 assists, 1 steal. Like you mentioned, he got cross-matched a few times and held his own. Ty Jerome, if he's not sixth man of the year, he better be a finalist, and he might be a finalist right alongside his best friend, DeAndre Hunter. But I have one final topic for us, and I feel like, if any Celtics fans watch this podcast, and they're probably pissed off that we've gone 31 minutes without mentioning it. But yes, the Celtics, they were injured tonight. They were down some key players, Jrue Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis. I understand that they didn't play. I understand that changes the matchup. So I want to ask Corey, do those injuries, how much of a game changer is it when Holiday and Kristaps are out there? And does that change your opinion of, can the Cavs beat the Boston Celtics in a 7-game series?
I don't think it really changes my opinion, but it definitely makes it more murky in the sense that Kristaps has been, for as much as we talk about how important Evan Mobley is to the Cavs in the postseason, or even in general, as being one of those like pivotal players that can swing a game or even a series against the Celtics, Kristaps Porzingis is the neutralizer for Evan Mobley for the Boston Celtics. And in a game today without Kristaps Porzingis, someone who's given Mobley trouble, Mobley did not play well for 3 quarters pretty much. And it took until the 4th quarter for Mobley to realize that, like, oh yeah, I do have Al Horford in front of me, someone who could easily be my father, and just realize that he could just take him wherever he wanted to go. But I think Kristaps is more of the problem. I think obviously Jrue Holiday is a great defender. I've seen a lot of Celtics fans complain on Twitter being like, Jrue Holiday's washed. Jrue Holiday is like a way lesser version of himself. It's like, okay, I bet in the postseason, Jrue Holiday is going to come up with some clutch defensive sequences and hit some clutch threes for you as well. And then you'll be like, oh my God, Jrue Holiday was just sleeping for the postseason. Because, Celtics fans usually wake up around the postseason. But no, I think it's fair to say that the Cavs comeback was impressive despite the injuries. I think injuries can always be a footnote in something, but it doesn't necessarily neutralize the message from a game. And the Cavs approach is not going to change that much more, but it really heightens how Mobley has to be better. And especially in Porzingis absent minutes, should really be able to make his mark. And it was a little disappointing that it took so late for that to be the result.
Yeah, great points all around. I know it's early for a prediction, Nikki, but I'm just going to ask you straight up. Cavs Celtics 7-game series. Who you got? What do you think would happen?
If I see you in the streets, I am telling you to take all the money in your pocket and put it on the Cavs. I think we're in an abnormal situation this season. We're in a very abnormal situation this season, being rookie on Mobley's rookie deal, having this abundance of talent, having Ty Jerome on this contract. I truly believe this season is a special opportunity. The point of today really was not to prove that the Cavs are better. I don't think anybody could have said that. I think the whole point of today was just to prove that we can do this. And yes, they didn't have Porzingis. They didn't have Holiday. And that's big because the Cavs did attack Sam Hauser a lot. And not having those guys weaken their depth. That's true. But, they also did have a 22-point lead at home. And they also had the best game of Jason Tatum this season. And like I said, over 4 games, it is a net 1 point favorite for Cleveland over 4 games. And 3 of those games we played with an imperfect roster in terms of matching up. I think adjustments will be made. I think there's a lot of room to grow. But I feel good about the Cavs odds against the Celtics, and we will have home court advantage when it comes down to it. So, and we have Kenny Atkinson. I think that's another thing. You talk about wanting to start Hunter, and you talk about wanting to see these adjustments, everything. You have a coach who is truly going to consider it and truly going to get a feel for when to do these things. And so the chess match, I feel confident in. The physicality, I feel confident in. The depth, I feel confident in. The star power, I feel confident in. There's not many boxes left to check. So, I'm taking the Cavs in 7.
Hell yeah, brother. I think I'll be right there with you. I've been saying all year that Boston, I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt as the champions, but honestly, after the way the season's gone and these 4 matchups, I really think it's kind of a toss-up. And saying Cavs in 7 is basically saying it's a toss-up because a series goes 7. It could go any way. And yeah, I mean, there's so much. This season has played out perfectly for Cleveland so far. They have all the pieces of a championship team. Real quick, I also wanted to mention, because I looked at the box score, and this is another thing that surprised me. Again, we're recording this directly after the game. We usually don't do that, so sometimes there's some things that I don't notice right away. We keep, Jason Tatum was unbelievable tonight. 46 points, 16 rebounds, 9 assists, 3 blocks. Fantastic game. Jaylen Brown also had 37. I didn't notice he was cooking to that degree. So he had 37 on 13 of 24 shooting. So yes, Jason Tatum had the best game, but they also got a good game from Jaylen Brown, and the Cavs still managed to overcome this. Yes, Boston's injured, but this was not a weak performance from Boston. This was a red-hot performance from Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and the Cavs managed to weather that storm. So I really do think if you have watched this Cavs team all year, even if you've only watched the Cavs versus Boston games, there's no way you should be walking away from this thinking the Cavs have no chance. They are very clearly on the same tier as the Boston Celtics and have as good of a chance as anyone at taking them down. The Ricky Rubio bobblehead approves. Any last takes before we wrap up?
Corey, I'll say this. The one thing I will say, and there's confidence moving forward. Yes, the depth. Yes, the defense. There's tactical things we need to do. But at the end of the day, our stars have to be as good or better than their stars. And the one thing that was good, we talk about Mobley, the focus on him. We saw what Donovan could do. This was the best that Darius Garland has looked against the Celtics in the last 2-3 seasons. It was good for him today to actually win some of these matchups, to take advantage of some of these ISOs, to not lose his confidence, especially when we went down so big early. I think he was maybe of all the crazy performances that we saw today, we aren't really talking about Darius, but for him to get over the mental hurdle, we forget it was against the Celtics last year that he fractured his jaw. It was against the Celtics last year in the playoffs where people really were trying to give up on him and throw him into trade rumors, right? So for him to come out on this last opportunity before you see them in the playoffs, do it on the road, actually finally win some of his matchups, shoot better, could have shot even better, but he hit some shots today. So proud of him. I think that it's just good to see, Darius Garland's been our best player all season, in my opinion. So I think for him to not have a total shitter tonight is a good step in the right direction for him.
I'm glad you mentioned DG because you're right. We did kind of neglect to talk about him in this episode, but we talk about Mitchell stepping up, Mobley stepping up. We talked about a lot, but who closed this game? Darius Garland. He was the closer tonight. He hit that deep 3 when I think to extend the lead to 5. And then he also had that step back in the mid-range with, I think, under 2 minutes left, somewhere around there. He actually was the one that closed this game. And you talk about DG overcoming some mental hurdles. This is the one thing that's blown my mind all year. Years past, DG, he wasn't really very clutch. We're gonna put it politely. He wasn't his best in the clutch moments. This year, he's literally the best clutch player in the NBA when you look at the efficiency, the decision making. Absolutely no fear of the moment. So was it an awesome DG game? Not quite. He played pretty well, but there were some, the 3-point shooting wasn't as good as you would like, but this was the best game he played against Boston in a while, for sure. I thought he did a good job getting downhill against those mismatches. And if he would have shot the 3 ball just a little bit better, it would have been an amazing DG night. So the fact that he closed the game, even with the struggles shooting the ball, I was really happy with the way DG performed. And I'm happy with how the Cavs played, and I'm happy with how this episode went. This was absolutely awesome. Nikki, thank you for joining. Tell the people where they can find you.
At Mr. Nicky G on Twitter. Hit me up. I'm always arguing with fans or trying to keep it positive. I don't know. I'm just talking. Come say hi. And I'm the head of video over at Clutch Points. If you ever watch our videos, if you ever seen the platform Cavs Nation, it's pretty big on Instagram, Twitter, and 2.5 million fans on Facebook. That was actually the first fan account, nation, like sports team account, owned and operated under Clutch Points. So that's actually where I started. I started as a Cavs reporter back in 2018, and then I moved into Clutch Points. So that's my whole sports journalism career came from there. So, but yeah, that's where you can find me and follow along. And thanks for having me on, guys. What an awesome show you guys have.
Hell yeah. Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. And yeah, everybody, make sure you're checking out what he's got going on. He does absolutely great stuff. And I was very, very happy that we finally managed to make this happen because we've been talking about it for a while. And we're definitely going to have you back sometime soon. This was a great episode. And for everyone watching, thank you for watching. If you enjoy this show, make sure you follow on Apple, YouTube, and Spotify. Leave a like, drop a comment, and make sure you tune in to our live watch parties on Playback because that last game against the Celtics that we just talked about, it was even better live. So thanks everyone for watching. And with all that being said, go Cavs.